Ladies and gentlemen, fight fans all over the world, let's talk some boxing. So I showed a video on the overhand right, and this guy here, Matthew Stevens, who says he trains fighters, he told me that some of the videos in here are not overhand rights. And he gave a perfect example of one, being Timothy Bradley when he's fighting Manny Pacquiao. He said that this punch here was not an overhand right. Neither was this one. Okay? He has no problem with these punches. Alright. Now let me just get my way through this. Now, you tell me. You tell me. This punch here. Now, that clearly is an overhand right. It is an overhand right. But as you can see clearly, the overhand right here that hits Floyd Mayweather here is not a punch necessarily that goes above the head of a fighter. As you can see, this overhand right is about the same height with the fighter. This is Marcus Maidana throwing an overhand right, okay? Let's look at Timothy Bradley throwing an overhand right, because I think a lot of people don't know what an overhand right is, and it's kind of sad. So, clearly those are classical overhand rights. This one especially. You could argue that this one's not an overhand right. You could argue it, because Timothy Bradley comes from here, right, and just throws it. So you can say that's a straight right. I could see the argument. He knocks down the shot, and he comes with a straight right, even though it's not a straight right. I can tell you that's an overhand right for more than one reason. But you can say that it's a straight right that hit Manny Pacquiao there. Okay? It's not a straight right. This one he's saying he's coming from low to high, and therefore it's not an overhand right. It is an overhand right, and there's a reason why it's an overhand right. But let's get into what an overhand right is, because apparently a lot of people don't even know what an overhand right is. So let's hear it from professionals, since Mr. Matthew Stevens told me to get some professionals who talk about overhand rights. I'm going to give you two examples of two professionals talking about the overhand right. I'm going to turn up the volume on it, and shout outs to them for borrowing the information from their channels right now. Let's start off with JT Van V. Now, even though this guy is Nate Barr's Fitness, which is this guy here, JT Van V is helping him out. He's a Canadian boxer, and he's going to tell you about the overhand right. Now, remember, for those of you who don't know what an overhand right is, the classical overhand right is where you throw a punch that goes over your arm. It's like, for those people who pitch in softball, you have the underarm pitch and you have the overhand arm pitch. So it's like when you say underhand or overhand, basically you're talking about a punch that starts below your shoulder or continues below your shoulder and goes over your shoulder. Alright? So if you have a punch, for instance, that starts below your shoulder, okay, your hand, it's considered underhand. Take, for instance, an uppercut. An uppercut is an underhand punch. It starts from below your shoulder and it works all the way up above your shoulder. However, the overhand right, as it says so clearly, is a right that starts over your shoulder. Now, not necessarily does it start over your shoulder. If you look at the typical Marcus Maidana punch here, let's go back to the Marcus Maidana punch here. It's right here. It actually started, let me see if I can get it here. Okay, so this is Marcus Maidana's hand. It actually started when he pulled back his hand, right? See here? So it started below his shoulder, right? But that's not what we're talking about. It's still an overhand punch, because when the punch starts to come here, it starts above the shoulder. It's more or less in line with the shoulder, but you can see the hand is above the shoulder, clearly above the shoulder, right? And so there you go. And it ends up landing above the shoulder. Now, with a Timothy Bradley, it's the very same thing in this punch. Okay, let's look at the second one here. All right, so Timothy Bradley starts low, but that does not mean that this is not going to be an overhand right, and I'll show you why it's so. Watch where his hand is. His hand is above his shoulder. All right, he comes up low. He kind of curls the punch back, so he's winding back as he's pivoting back. This is why he got all this torque. And all of that torque builds leverage and that's what knocked Manny Pacquiao back. All that power. Our overhand right has a lot of power, and that's why he was able to knock Manny Pacquiao off his feet and backwards. Okay, that's what you call an overhand right. Okay, it didn't have that huge an arc, and so did Marcus Maidana's overhand right. Also didn't have a huge arc. Okay, it didn't have a huge arc, but it had a lot of power. A lot of power. You see, Floyd Mayweather was moving into the punch, and it literally knocked him backwards. Okay? And you have many other examples of the classical overhand right that everybody knows. So, what we're going to do is we're going to start with JT Van V here, and listen to him talk about what, by definition, is the overhand right. Okay?
Basically, the overhand right is coming like any right hand. You got to turn your body, you got to turn your shoulders, generate power coming through. You got to keep your left hand on your chin. The key behind the overhand right is that it's coming over your opponent's hand. It's coming over their jab, over their left hand. It's coming over top.
Do you hear that? So, the overhand right, there's two definitions for the overhand right. One is it's an overhand punch, meaning it goes over your shoulder. The second is that it is like an overhand counter. It's going over the hand of your opponent, over the defense of your opponent. Usually your opponent's defense will be a jab or a right hand. Even though it's offensive, it's also defensive, and that's keeping your hands at home. But an overhand right is like, it can be a counter where it goes over your opponent's defense, which is what I was saying in the video before. Again, this information never came from me, guys. I observe things in boxing and then I talk about it. I listen to the fighters, I listen to the telecast, I listen to people before I talk. Okay, Mr. Matthew, what's your name? Mr. Matthew Stevens, I think is your name. Yes, Mr. Matthew Stevens, Mr. Coach of all these different students. Maybe you'll learn something today. Alright, you're going to learn something. I'm not trying to be pompous or proud. I'm just telling you what it is. And this is a guy who's been boxing for a long time. Everybody knows when you talk about an overhand punch, it's a punch that goes over your opponent's punch or over the defense. If you have a shoulder roll defense, it goes over that defense. If you have a high guard defense, what they do is they use a jab to keep your guard pressed together, and then they'll loop a punch. They'll do as if they're going low, and the opponent will drop their guard a bit, and they go over the defense, and they hit the guard. That's what overhand right is all about. Okay? It's also a punch that goes over the shoulder because it has to be a high punch. Now people talk about arc and arc and arc and arc in the overhand right, not understanding what it's about. It's really to get the right over your defense, and then you come down on the defense. You understand? It doesn't necessarily have to have an arc. But let's listen to JT Van V, the expert, talk about it.
You can throw it wide, which usually is harder for the opponent to see, but comes slower. The ideal uppercut is to torque it tight, just over top of the jab, of the opponent's jab. So Nate's going to get in position, facing the camera. Demo a few, hands up. Watch as he turns his body, doesn't lean too far forward, lose balance. Throw the overhand right. Let it out, snap it. Good.
Alright, that punch right there that you just saw. Let's see if Canelo Alvarez, this guy is saying Canelo Alvarez didn't throw an overhand right. Well, let's see if that's true. Let's get to Canelo over here. Canelo Alvarez, he's probably the last guy. Okay, right here. Alright, we're going to go right here. Watch Canelo throw the overhand right. First he snaps back to avoid the punch. Look where he's coming from. Watch it now. Notice the arc in his punch. Let's see that again. It is shorter. It's not the ideal distance to get an overhand right and get leverage. But Canelo is so skilled, he's able to snap back, slip the jab to the outside of the jab. He's seeing his target right here. And he starts, it's a very nice big arc actually. It goes all the way up over the jab and then arcs downwards. Watch it. So that is an overhand right. Okay? There's no other expression for it. It's the classical overhand right. The only problem is, like I said here, you slip to the outside of the jab and you counter over it. That's again from Mr. Matthew Stevens, who's saying that Canelo did not throw an overhand right. And by the way, let me just show you his comments because you would not believe what this guy said. So I said, which ones? He said the Bradley ones and the Canelo one. Okay? So this guy is teaching guys how to throw the overhand right, and he cannot observe what an overhand right is. He just doesn't know what it is. And that, to me, is a little perturbing. I can understand if you say that Bradley, when he threw this punch to Manny Pacquiao, it wasn't an overhand right. I would understand if you were to say that, because it looks rather straight. This punch right here. This punch right here. Okay? Bradley slaps down the jab. Okay? He seems to be in the same plane as Manny Pacquiao here. Okay? And you're saying that this is straight right here. Okay? It's not, but I understand why he would say something like that, because the target is almost at the same level as Timothy Bradley. But it's not a straight right. Okay? Believe it or not, that is an overhand right. Everything from his torque, watch how he torques the shot. Watch how he torques the shot. I mean, it's the torque similar to what you would do with a normal punch. So I understand him saying that this looks like a straight right. I would almost fully agree with him, except for two things. One, it's going over this left hand, and it's also going over his jab, which is his line of defense. He had to go over them to hit Manny Pacquiao. Remember, the overhand right, according to JT Van V, goes over the defense. Yes, it goes over your shoulder as well. You can see his punches over his shoulder, but it also goes over his defense. Now, what's the difference between an overhand right and a straight right? A straight right, well, we'll see it in the videos. So let's just get on with it.
See how he generates power right from the back leg? Just like any right hand, from the start position, the hand comes over top. Right off the chin, coming right over top of the opponent's jab. Okay, this way. So here I'm going to hold my jab out. This is the ideal scenario. The opponent throws a jab. Let's say he wants to connect on my chin. He throws it. There's the shot. The tighter, the better. Okay? As opposed to a straight hand. If he throws a straight hand, there's going to be a little bit of a clash. He's going to come right over top with that. If he wants, he can lean off to the side like he's doing, as long as he doesn't come too far forward and lose his balance. Okay? So let's demo a few on the pad. He's going to let the overhand right go. Watch his balance. Torque on the back leg. Now I'm going to even put it a little bit tighter to him. He's going to come right over tight. Really tight. That's it. Now if he wants, he can even go a little bit wider, harder to see, just a touch wider.
Now that touch wider, when he says tight, he's keeping the arc pretty, he's not arcing it as much. When you say wider, you're looping the shot a lot more. Okay? And that's for the opponent not to see the shot coming. And also gives you enough time for the opponent's defense to open up so that you can catch them, right? Because you want them to drop their guard. See, that's the whole point behind it. And here, when we're looking at Marcos Maidana, who does it perfectly against Floyd Mayweather, let me see. Oh, Gennady Golovkin also does it really nicely here with not much arc. Let me show you Gennady Golovkin here. First, he jabs David Lemieux. David Lemieux reacts by hooking. And watch it, Golovkin go over that hook, over that shoulder, and catch him. Really tight, nice and tight. Watch it. See that? Nice and tight. It almost looks like a hook, but it's actually an overhand right. Okay? Nice and tight. Not much vertical movement there. He's looking to try and get him with the overhand right as quickly as possible. Okay? And yeah, there's some horizontal hooking-like action. You'll see it with Marcos Maidana as well. But it more or less, that's an overhand right. Okay, and again, it's because it goes over the defense, over, in this case, Lemieux's hook and shoulder. That's why it's called an overhand right. There's two reasons, right? All right, let me show you Marcos Maidana. Marcos Maidana versus Floyd Mayweather. He's a really good overhand right thrower, actually. It'd be right here. Again, nice and tight. He starts off way down low, right? But he's really going to loop the shot. So the point is, he wants to draw Floyd's defense down. So he starts low so that Floyd would think, oh my gosh, he's going to hook me. Because the action of Marcos Maidana is almost the same. He always pulls the hand back, and then you don't know if he's going to go high or if he's going to go low. You don't know because it's almost inherent in his feint. So Floyd's guessing what he's going to do. So he thinks he's going to go to the body, so watch what Floyd does. He drops his guard. So you drop the guard right there, and when he dropped the guard, Marcos Maidana looped the shot just enough. But it doesn't have a lot of arc. And I'll show you, you'll see it again in a second time. Okay, here it is. Slow jab, that's to draw the defense together. Make sure the defense stays here. Okay, then I want to drop the defense. So here I come with the looping shot. So he advances, he steps in, he's looping the shot. Floyd was trying to get the shoulder into place because he was trying to get the right angle. He knows Marcos Maidana sometimes hooks, and he drops his guard. He drops the 2 guard, and he drops it. Marcos Maidana is able to get over the shoulder and hit him square in the face. There's not a lot of arc in that shot. Let me show you it again. It's nice and tight. Let's back it up. Okay. So we're going to try and move it forward nice and slow. I'm going to slow it down so you can see it. Let me slow it down even more. Nice and slow. There we go. See how straight that shot is? But it's high, so it won't catch him on the side of the head. Notice Floyd drops the defense. The defense is now open. If he had kept his double guard there, Marcos Maidana would have hit the guard. But he wasn't too sure if it was going to go to the body or to the head, so he drops his guard there. Marcos Maidana is clearly at Floyd's head. Look at the punch coming there, the trajectory of the punch. It's not very highly looped. And then catches him. Boom. As he drops it. So it's a very small arc. It's an arc that goes like this. Right? Catches Floyd smack on. But Floyd has these insensibilities with it to basically lock up on his arm. And so because he locks up on his arm, he doesn't get knocked down. And he also smothers Maidana's offense at the same time. But he's hurt. Definitely was hurt by that shot. Very effective punch. So my point anyway is this. Alright? JT Van V, he talks about the purpose of the overhand right as well as what it is. And here is one more person.
Hey everyone, here today to give you guys another boxing video. So we're going to show you how to throw an overhand right.
Okay, so this is Gary Fernandez. He's also a boxer. He's also a boxing expert. And Gary Fernandez is going to show you how to throw the overhand right. He's going to give you another reason why you use the overhand right. Let's go.
What we're going to do is, I'm going to show the difference between the 2 first, and I'll explain when you would use it, okay? The overhand right is very beneficial when you want to throw it as a counter. Like if somebody's throwing a jab, if I'm a right-handed fighter, and I'm fighting someone who's also right-handed, when they throw a jab, I can counter with an overhand right at the same time. Or it also comes in handy for someone like myself who's a little shorter. Whenever I fight somebody who's tall, and I come in and like, say I'm right here on them, almost like I want to put my forehead in their chest, this is when it would really come in handy to throw it, because I'm so low they don't really see it coming.
Okay, so he gives the 2 purposes for the overhand right there. And again, it has to do with the defense. If you're inside on a guy or you're mid-range on a guy, you dig your head into their chest and then you throw the overhand right, then you can catch them with something, as in the case here where these 2 guys were fighting very close to one another. Find somebody here who's doing that. This is the overhand left though. Sergio Martinez versus Paul Williams. They're kind of close. They're not really that close. But you see Sergio Martinez, Paul Williams is not even watching for that overhand right. He's only seeing that he's going to hit Sergio Martinez with the left hook. And he doesn't see the overhand right coming. And so it catches him. He doesn't even see that punch. He's not even looking for it. He didn't even know the punch was coming. And what is the most effective punch? What's the punch that hurts fighters the most? Punches that they can't see and they haven't been able to brace for. So this dude was knocked out. As you can see, his eyes closed. He was knocked out when that punch hit him. He didn't even know the punch hit him. He didn't even know that, right? As you can see, 2 things. The head of Sergio Martinez is not telling you where his hand's coming from. So it's very much a blind punch. The fighter doesn't see the punch at all and has no indication that a punch is coming. It's a very, very effective punch. And this is the classical overhand right, of course. When I say classical and when I talk about non-classical and classical, I mean this is the punch that most fighters know how to throw. And this one has a lot of arc. As they say, it's not as tight. It has a lot of arc, so it can catch. It has to be very, very highly arced because they're very close. Okay? So, I just thought I would share that with you guys because Mr. Matthew Stevens said that I was not, a lot of these punches are not overhands, and the punches he highlighted was Bradley's and Canelo's. And like I said, both of Bradley's punches are overhand rights. You know, you'd be tempted to think that Bradley's throwing a straight right there, but it's not a straight right. It's a right over Manny Pacquiao's defense. And an overhand right goes over the defense. Okay, so that's why it's even called an overhand punch. Yes, it also has to do with the delivery, that it's going over the shoulder, but more than that, once you're coming over your opponent's defense, when it's over their jab, you slap down the jab and you go over the jab, or you go over their shoulder, or you go over their high guard because you made them drop the guard a little bit, so you went over it. Whatever, that's an overhand shot as well. So there are two definitions for overhand right, and that's why you hear people say, oh, he hit him with the overhand right. You hear that a lot. But there's a classical way of throwing it where it's not as tight as you hear JT Van V say. It's not as looped. And then there's the classical way, which most people know, where your head is down and you're throwing the punch. So most people say when they're training that it's a punch that must go over your head, but it doesn't always go over your head. Even so, it doesn't always go over your shoulder. And that's something that Matthew Stevens actually raised, and he may not have realized that actually is a good point. It doesn't always go over your shoulder. It doesn't come from the hip, but it doesn't go over your shoulder all the time. And he was mentioning, I think it was Marcus Maidana or something like that, even though Marcus Maidana's punch went over the shoulder. It doesn't always go over the shoulder, but what's important, it must go over your opponent's defense. That's what makes it overhand, because it's over your opponent's hand. You understand? That's what makes it overhand. And also, it must, generally speaking, the delivery of it is over your shoulder. So Matthew Stevens made a very good point there. I give him credit for that. But Matthew Stevens, I think you learned something today. If it's good to dispute with people. Sometimes you're being a bit insulting, and I myself am a bit insulting. But in so doing, you learn a thing or two. You know what I mean? But again, I just wanted to send this video especially for Mr. Matthew Stevens, who apparently some people just argue things on the internet, and I think I get the feeling that, I don't know why. I mean, I've clashed with this guy before. I think on something else, some other boxing thing. I can't remember what. And this guy, he was trying to prove to me that he was right. And I showed him without a shadow of doubt that that's not what it is. But he just kept on going, and how I never boxed before in my life, and I'm one of those armchair guys. Look, man. Look, dude. One thing about me, you'll learn, and you'll learn it really fast, is I usually have my ducks in a row. When I talk about something, I know what I'm talking about. And it's not necessarily that I want to expose you at this point in time to show my knowledge of the thing, but it's just that I don't talk nothing that I just configured in my head or something. It don't work like that. It's something that I saw, that people talked about, boxers, that's how they describe it. And when I come out with something, it's usually to make you think as well. I don't just give you the usual run-of-the-mill bullshit. I'm not that kind of person. So I hope that you learned a little something, because clearly you didn't know that. You didn't know what an overhand right was. You had an idea, but you didn't know what it was. So I'm hoping that this knowledge you can use to teach your students and help them more. I'm pretty sure you know a lot more about boxing than I do in terms of the implementation of it. But in terms of the definition of things and what I was doing with my video that you was trying to critique, you obviously didn't know what you was talking about there. I'm sorry, buddy. You have a great one.